goddamn little. Ow! Fuck me in the goat ass!
What's this thing doing? I can't figure this out.
You goddamn little. Ow! Fuck me in the goat ass!
Mr. Giggles, why is it always got to be a goat ass?
You goddamn little. You goddamn little. Ow! Fuck me in the goat ass!
Hi, everybody. This is Tin Man with the Resistance. Tin Man will be here in a minute. I'm Mr. Giggles. Hi. That's been a long time. Hey, Grandmaster, hey, did you get that $5 for me?
Well, go find an adult, Giggles. Go find an adult.
An adult? What's an adult?
I think Giggles actually became 19 while everybody was on hiatus, so he's actually technically an adult.
I'm a grown up now. I'm a grown up.
No, this is not good.
Grandmaster, did you get the $5 for the blow up doll that I sent you? I'm talking to you.
Grandmaster, did you get the $5 Mr. Giggles owed you? Oh, wow.
And he's gone.
And he's got. He's back.
And I'm back.
And he's back.
Grandmaster, did you get the $5 for the blow up doll?
Yeah, but not for the toaster you're fucking.
Well, how much do you want to reach the toaster? I mean, I broke the radio the last time I took a bath with it, but, you know.
I sent you an industrial toaster to fuck. I bet you couldn't do it.
Well, I mean, we were trying to do that whole pansexual thing with the whole, you know, Star Wars Solo thing, you know, when fucking Lando Calrissian is supposed to be pansexual. I didn't see him fucking any pans.
Am I the only one that thinks that Giggles needs an OnlyFans?
Am I the only one that's
Didn't man do that once? Like, he
am I
just
the only one that's on Mr. Giggles' side about no electric ovens because he sleeps in the oven and he rather gas ovens?
Yeah, let's not do that. In fact, I'm very tired. I was just trying to figure this thing out, you know, because Tin Man was in the bathroom. But he's come back out now, so I'm going to go back in the I'm going to go back and take a nap now. But later, guys. What's up, everyone? Tin Man with the Resistance. If you're watching this, you are the Resistance. Oh, got masks on. We're going to pick up right where we left off last week. Connor, that you're pretty much going to run the show today, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. We were talking about the whole Russia thing, everything that's going on in Russia. You were saying earlier things are happening very, very fast. It's really hard to keep up with everything and keep track of everything. It really kind of seems like an illusionary trick. You know, just kind of look over here, you know, look at this hand while my other hand picks your pocket kind of thing. And, you know, everybody wants, a lot of people are trying to put the focus on Israel, but the focus seems to be on the Russia-Ukraine issue. And let's not mince words, you know, there are still a lot of things going on with Israel, a lot of things going on with the Middle East, but it seems to, some people want to focus on one and not the other, and one seems to be more intense than the other. I'm thinking, you know, definitely the Russia-NATO issue with Ukraine and the prospect of nuclear war, given the United States and Russia are pretty much the two biggest, baddest motherfuckers with the most nuclear toys to play with in this regard. Would definitely, you know, be something that grabs a lot of people's attention, but it has to be asked if maybe this is a distractionary tool. You know, again, look at this hand while the other hand goes to work. So,
I'd like to add to this a little bit.
yeah.
Normally, we hear about Middle East, Far East, which Far East is China, Thailand, and Northeast, which is whatever Russia decides to do this week because Putin bad. Okay, but we never hear anything about Western continents. Like, when was the last time you heard South America in a war with somebody? Recently, in technological age, is my
Well, I
question.
mean, the only things you really hear about in terms of South America or anything south of Mexico is the migrant issues. That's pretty much where it settles.
But they're
It's
not trying
mostly the
to fight
migrant stuff.
anybody. They're not mad about the land that their countries have in their continent. They don't want to unite their continent. It's what's going on with South America. We always hear about everything everywhere across the world. But what's going
Yeah,
on with South America?
nobody cares about South America.
Whenever North
South
America
America is
puts
like
on their hat
non-existent.
and pulls up their pants, they're going to look down at their foot and be like, my, that's a big toe we have to conquer. Because I'm going off of the same thing that John Connor was going off of earlier. Whenever they make Can America, they're going to want to unite the entire Western Hemisphere right after. They got the Northwest continent. They're uniting the planet on their terms. And that's not allowed by what we as the resistance, so to speak, the Worldwide Resistance Network,
The true resistance.
their terms. We don't want it under their terms. We want the citizens to coalesce and come together and be a world community, not a world company. Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautifully
Yeah,
said.
what it kind of reminds me of right now is like you have somebody on the stage, and then you have a monkey or a small child moving through the crowd, picking people's pockets while they're distracted. And I'm thinking that's kind of what's going on right now. Is Israel's going, hey Russia, keep everybody distracted while I go through and do what I do.
Tucker.
And it kind of has been, Israel working behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that happened throughout history where Israel
And then
was
on top of
instrumental in
all
certain
that,
things.
make sure you mention China and Thailand, because China hides a lot more than the American government does from their citizens. China hides more from the world than the American government hides from their citizens. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, for sure. And these are definitely topics to really touch on. But I know Connor really wanted to get into the Israeli thing, so I wanted to give that its platform. And we could just take it from there and just kind of go around the globe and touch on each area per roundtable kind of thing. But this week, I guess, would be the focus on Israel and what Connor wants to point out here. So, Connor, take it away, my brother.
All right, so we're going to try and do this as quick and as painless as possible, a whole lot like taking off a Band-Aid. I'll start with Israeli, and then I'll move forward, and you are absolutely correct. It's going to be a whole lot of just bouncing all over the globe, a lot of fact-checking. Just you're going to have to bear with me because the thought process is half fuckered. And then this is the other side of it. There's going to be a lot of repetition, and it's not done purposeful, and I don't do any of this as I told you so. It just gives the viewer an idea as to where to go look in our previous videos, because a lot of what I'm going to touch today we've already discussed in length in the past. But the thing is that when we spoke of this in the past, it was very much theory, very much we were all crazy, and this would have to happen, and then this would have to happen, and it would be like a big house of cards / domino. And in order for us to be visiting what we would call World War III. So
yes, and before we dive into it, let me point out, nobody here is anti-Jewish. Nobody here is anti-Semitic. We have no problem with the Jewish people. We have no problem with any Middle Eastern languages. I've said this many times in the past. I like to point this out. Anytime somebody says anti-Semitism, Semitism has to do with the languages of that region, not just the Jewish language, but all Middle Eastern languages. So that if that is Semitism, Semitism has to do with Middle Eastern languages. Anti-Semitism would be a hatred of language. And I dislike the term anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic as being a hatred for Jewish people, because Semitism has to do with Middle Eastern language, and you're just hijacking the term to support prejudice ideas, and to sit there and say, oh, well, you said something, you disagreed with Israel on something, or you pointed out that Israel did something bad, as if these people aren't human beings and are somehow incapable of doing bad things. I mean, for fuck's sake, look at the fucking Old Testament. God was whooping their ass left and right ever since the Exodus out of Egypt. It was God going Papa Spank every time Israel got out of hand, and they got out of hand a lot. That's why they were led into bondage a lot, all the way up to the time of the Roman Empire, because they kept getting out of hand, and God be like, Papa Spank.
And I don't mean to sound like
So
arrogant
is God anti-Semitic?
or
Fuck you all for
prideful
saying that shit.
from this next statement.
I love the Jewish people. My uncle is Jewish. I have Jewish friends. I used to work for a fucking synagogue. So anybody calls me anti-Semitic or says that I'm a Nazi or fucking hate Jews or this or that, especially considering I have short hair, fuck you. I'm balding, so I shave my fucking head. You don't like it? Suck my dick backwards and buy me a fucking milkshake. I'm sorry, Connor. Go ahead.
No, my bad. But I don't mean to come off as prideful or arrogant here. But I completely understand what you mean by the people twisting the understandings of words, because I've noticed, and this is the part where it's going to cause a little bit of diversity here. I've noticed that those that are under 90 IQ really don't comprehend what those over 90 IQ are saying most of the time. And it's a very difficult divide each increment of 10 there afterwards. And that's why the term layman's was presented across the board. It's not that I'm arrogant or being rude by saying intelligence. I'm only at 117. I'm not in the 120, 130 range like the really smart people are. But I'm quite sure that across this table, we're all above 100, if not touching 100 IQ, so that we can at least comprehend to fathom the things that we're discussing.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to avoid, winding up in the same boat as Alex Jones. So I'm making a point of clarifying things. I'll add the disclaimer with the middle finger. And, I'm not going to play this whole, oh, well, he said this or he insinuated that. A while back, I made a certain video addressing the misuse of language, specifically the N-word. And the title of that video was Barack Obama is the N-word. And I didn't even focus on anything racial in that instance. It was, hey, this is to grab your attention. Here's how they're abusing language. The N-word used to mean uneducated or ignorant person, and now it's being used as a racial slur. Anti-Semitism. Semitism is a word to describe languages of the Middle East. So anti-Semitism would be a hatred of Middle Eastern language, and it's used as a racially motivated term against Israeli people or the Jewish people. It's like, fuck you and your constant changing of language. The original English language that we stood with when the language was first established, wasn't that like under the whole around the whole time of like Shakespeare and everything like that? The whole Old English versus modern day English are two different languages, essentially. I mean, I hear a lot of these young kids talking terms like, what? Like a coworker of mine says
like
base all the time.
Every day slowly, and it's insane. I agree with you, Tin Man. Some of these words that they're using, bro, it's insane. I actually went to a class to understand what they're saying, and I still don't get half of it.
Yeah, because the English language in particular, is constantly changing. I mean, like I was saying, I have a coworker who says base all the time, and I had to ask him one time, like, what the fuck does base mean?
I know, and that's one of the ones
Because
I get. It means
I didn't
that
grow
you're
up in this
real.
generation. I'm 40 fucking years old.
Because you're
Okay,
basic.
I've got gray hair like a motherfucker. I'm balding. Okay, I'm not a young kid anymore. Like I was when I first started. So we're talking terminology now of things that I don't know what the fuck you're saying. Oh, base. Oh, that's base. What the fuck? What is base? Like, oh, there's a
Authentic.
negative thing. Oh, it's bad. Okay, yeah, okay, got you now, buddy. Okay, so I have to make sure to be that disclaimer because we don't need to get hit with some cancel culture or fucking some bullshit saying, oh, well, so-and-so said this on his platform or
Okay.
said this or did this or they're racist or that. It's like, no, I will post up the disclaimer and I will hold up my middle finger while getting my fucking dick sucked off camera.
Well, see, here's the funny thing. They won't cancel us. They'll just kill us. That's the problem. Because what I've been
I
realizing.
still haven't been swatted yet. I'm surprised on that. Watch tonight. I get swatted.
So the big reason why I stepped away was because I understood the conflict. So I'm going to breeze through it as fast as I can without being too derogatory. So this is the very bare bone basics. Most people everybody wants to understand the war. Why is everybody fighting? Why is everybody dying? Okay, cool. I get that. What you're going to do is you're going to look at your national politics. What does it take to be the leader? What is the leader currently doing? What is the leader doing to other people in the world? Cool. What has your country, regardless of the country of origin, what has it done to either help or hinder the world? Who did it fight? Who did it win? Who did it lose against? All of these things. And what happens is that you end up going backwards in history, as it should be. But then you get to a point where you get kind of fucking lost because you're like, yo, like none of this shit makes sense because you forget. You're like, oh, yeah, it wasn't always a president. There was a time when it was kings, right? And then you're like, oh, shit, kings didn't even move without speaking to their priests. Okay, so that brings we were political presidents. Now we're the kings. Boom. Now we're in the religion. I've come to realize now why you're not allowed to teach religion in schools. Because in order to understand the entire scope of why we're still killing each other, we need to open a few books. And a few of these books are considered religious books. Okay, let's try that. So I did. So I tried it. I looked into all of that shit. Certain people like certain people. Other people are just trying to help other people. And this other group don't like the fucking nobody. Okay, cool. Who doesn't like people? And who is it that they don't like? And why is it that they do not like them? Okay, so I look into that. So what I do is I find.
Maybe we can go this one.
So I go, oh, nice. So I find the Talmud and I read it. Well, I don't really read it. I literally let a rabbi explain to me what it is. And that was enough for me. I could find a few quotes here and there and a few verses. But if you actually want to read that bit, you're going to have to go to the synagogue, find it, and read it. And that's okay, too. That's why I always tell people, don't hurt your good God-fearing Jews that are found inside your nation because they're here doing, well, for lack of a better word, the Lord's work. They're just here existing. Their country was taken away from them by their God. Their God said, don't have another country. Even if one's given to you, you have to refuse it. Okay, I understand that. Why the fuck does Israel exist? But I'm not allowed to say shit like that, right? So what I decided to in the end was I don't like political policy. Now, I could choose any country and pick it to fucking pieces. So let's do that with Israel for a second. I don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. He's gone. They replaced him with another Yahoo. Don't even know his fucking name. I haven't even looked that far.
Number two.
Pretty much Yahoo number 2. Okay, and both of them were bad juju. So what happens here is that we have video footage of Benjamin Netanyahu meeting up with some of the largest religious leaders of his nation and like taking money from these men. And these men are literally telling him to do something that will hasten the arrival of the Messiah. The problem is that if you understand religious theologies, regardless of the book you open, the Messiah, according to the book I read, that motherfucker only shows up after everything goes to shit. So shit's got to go to shit first, then the Messiah comes. So doing anything.
Okay, so are we talking about the Jewish Messiah or are we talking about the second coming of Christ?
I think he's still in general basic terms of what is told through prophecy of the world's oldest telephone game. So
That-
altogether,
so you're
your
talking
answer
old.
is yes.
You're talking old. You're talking. We're not talking Jesus Christ here. We're talking about
We're
the
talking yes,
promised
yes, and yes,
Messiah
and
that
yes
the
to all your
Jews.
questions.
It could be
You're talking
Jesus.
about the Jewish warrior Messiah that will liberate the Jewish people.
Well, so-
As
And
well as yes to all other following questions.
yeah, pretty much. So in essence, it goes like this: it's they want the Messiah to show up. So now, whether their Messiah is the good, loving Messiah of the world, which whatever, cool, it probably could be, or it's Jesus. When you really look at it, there's an antichrist that comes first. So doing anything to hasten the arrival of a Messiah means that you're going to do something that's going to open the ninth gates of hell. Now, I don't know which religion is going to be the one responsible for opening the ninth gate of hell, and I won't even pretend like I do. But I will tell you that there are people that exist that believe that Jesus is sitting in a vat of human excrement boiling. So they can't be the most Christian folk out there. And I've come to realize that there's a ridiculous divide. Now, you're going to have to fact check this one. And when you find it, it's going to be kind of like, it's going to kind of set you aback for a second, because Tin Man touched on it when he said, well, are you talking about the Messiah for the Jewish people or Jesus, right? And that's a ridiculously valid fucking question. But here's the fuckery of it all. There was a Jewish leader in Israel that was like the head honcho, the top dude. And he wrote a letter, and he said that letter had to be open X amount of years. Maybe it was just 1 year after his death. I'm not sure exactly. But it was a period of time after his death that he would have to, that we were allowed to open this letter. So the man passes away, and he was a devout Jewish leader. And he passes away, and we then later in life open this fucking letter, and the letter is telling the world that it's important for the Jewish people that he leads to open and embrace Jesus as the Jewish Messiah, that a few things had gone wrong. Well, that's kind of impacting. That's way the fuck up here as far as like what's it going to do, because there's a reason why the kings didn't move without talking to the priests, and it's because before there was presidents, before there was politics, before there was kings, there was just motherfuckers killing for their God. So it was just religion. So we have to look at it because it's a piece of the human history. It's a part of why we were killing each other back then. So why is all of this important? Why is any of that of value? I'm going to bring it all the way to current day. There's January 6th, the hostage taking. Well, now that was sold as a huge terrorist activity, and nobody, and I mean nobody, and before I get into it, I'm going to throw a small allegory out there, where is, if I'm the leader of a country and you're the leader of a country, okay, and I want to go to war with you, but my people are kind of, they're dead set against it. They're like, I don't want to fucking fight anymore, bro. And I'm like, I get it, but just one more war. But they still say no. So it's in my best interest, if I want a war, to do something to you, the opposing country. And then when you do something to my ass, because I fucking damn well deserve it, well, my people...
Then you got the pretext.
Right. My people, they don't know that I did that, right? We call that a government secret, you see. National security.
Kind of like what NATO's trying to do to Russia. Oh, we're going to put troops on the ground in NATO as peacekeepers, and the second they wind up dead, there's your pretext to execute Article 5.
Right. So now what
You're basically talking Article 5 in ancient times.
Yes. But now here we're in current times, and this is what happened. Nobody talked about what happened before January 6th. So right before January, everybody knows about January 6th and the hostage takings, but no one knows about the 2 times that Israel illegally broke the existing ceasefire before the hostage takings, which makes people in the know, like myself and others.
I think I don't think you're talking January 6th. January 6th is what happened in Washington at the Capitol. I think you're talking on another date.
Yeah, give me the date for when the Israeli hostage was taken. Make sure that date.
I do not know the date. You
I'm
quoted it
still
earlier, but
looking
it was not
into the
January 6th.
rabbi.
What was that?
I'm still looking into the rabbi. Somebody look that one up. Thank you.
Yes. Because it was like this huge thing, like everybody remembered it. But now it's even my brain.
It wasn't September. Was it October something?
October 1st? No,
Or November something?
I'm not sure. Let's see if I can make this work. Hold on.
Doop, 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 doop.
October 7th. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
So
Yes,
on
thank you.
October 7th, there was.
Okay, so for everybody who's gonna jump our shit, it's like, oh, we talking about January 6th. No, we misquoted it. What he meant was October 7th.
Yes. So October 7th.
We got our dates mixed up.
These things happen. There was a huge thing that took
We're
place.
human.
Concert was attacked. A lot of people lost their lives that day. Hostages were taken. Okay. Well, nobody talked about how Israel had bombed the Palestinians 2 separate occasions during a ceasefire, and the Palestinians, and nobody had done anything in retaliation to that yet. So I'm assuming at this point that the Arab leaders would have said, okay, we're just going to let this one ride and we're going to put this together and we're going to do a military attack. When you actually break the borders of another nation and like you get through and like you invade and you take hostages, that's not terrorism. We can't just willy-nilly.
I'm having trouble here.
Okay.
Right? We can't willy-nilly.
I'm having trouble hearing you guys.
Yeah, that happens. We can't.
What happened?
Trouble hearing
We're
me.
going glitchy.
Yeah, as soon as they start talking about this, it gets fucked fast. So an act of terrorism is when you try to do something to make somebody comply to your demands. When you break a border, you've invaded, you take hostages, that's an act of war. Now the definitions are like huge. It's 2 completely different things taking place at that point.
Excuse me. Did
Yes.
you just ask the technical definition of terrorism?
The
technical definition of terrorism is a group of people are in fear of your actions or words. The reason why I know this is because I was charged with it. And that's why the case was dismissed, because the judge said 3 is a few, 4 or more is a group. There was only 3 witnesses. So it got dismissed because it wasn't considered a group of people were in fear of my words or actions.
Yes. So, but
that's the whole thing. This is way back 20 years ago, more or less, and that's comparatively to change the words this day and age. And that was right after 9/11, because, like I said, just 20. So 9/11 had already happened.
So what I'm getting at here, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is that these 2 things took place before the hostage taking, and we didn't know about it. No one talked about it on the news. And then the retaliation, which was the hostage taking and the violence that was attached to it, was sold to the West as an act of terrorism when it was a retaliatory act of war. 2 different things. Okay. And that's kind of huge, because once it's an act of war, okay, this is what's big here. This is why Iran has sat on its laurels for so long, because I don't know if anybody's really noticed, but like Iran's kind of in the business of nation building, a lot like the United States is. They just do so with Arabic nations. And they don't really like terrorism, so to speak. Now, they back government militias in other countries that we, the West, have declared that these are terrorist groups. But on a national scale, Iran's not really big on terrorism. They have their own national military. They don't need all these proxies. So when something happens and it becomes globally recognized as an act of terror, Iran stands back, because Iran doesn't want to be seen as the one that's supporting terrorists. But now when the Houthis, I believe it was, or Hamas, it was Hamas, sorry. When Hamas went in, and breached the borders, took the hostages, and it became an act of war and not terrorism. Well, now Iran's allowed to militarily aid its military ally. You see how all of this kind of flipped on its end there.
Because they went on the defensive instead of the aggressive.
Well, because it wasn't just because they told us in the West it was an act of terrorism. Anybody with half a brain, when we looked at it, we just saw that it was a retaliatory act of war. Even Iran knew that we would see that eventually. So they would be able to retaliate in a military context. This is why Iran shot all of those missiles into Israel. So when the thing happened in Israel, and then they started demanding hostages back, well, the Arab world started demanding other things as well, like water and medical aid and things that Canada is normally really gung-ho to go and make sure. Like, the Americans send the bullets, we send the bandages, and we really hope that you guys sort it out. Because we got bandages, Americans got bullets, and none of us are shooting each other yet. So let's see if we can duplicate that in another part of the world. Now, here we're looking at that Iran has decided, and this is what most people don't get. I always used to say the catalyst was Iran, because Iran has now decided that they're at war. Like, Iran just declared, Donald Trump, holy fuck, I told you guys, this goes too fast. So Donald Trump has been threatening, bombing, and this and that. Okay, today or yesterday, within this last little bit, Iran just came out and just stated that, like, okay, well then we're at war with the United States. So Iran is in a state of open declaration of war with the United States right now as we speak, because the bombers went to Diego Garcia, because Trump has said on multiple occasions he would just bomb the hell out of them. The reason why all of this is important is because who holds Iran's... Okay, I used to say this back in the day. Who holds Syria's security contract? It was Iran. Iran holds the security contracts of a lot of the small Muslim nations. Okay, so if you do something way too out of pocket with these smaller Muslim nations, assuming that there is no Arabic army to protect them, Iran stands there and says, I'm watching you. What are you doing? Leave my people alone. And finally, when they sold to the West, what happened on October 7th as the hostage takings and so on and so forth, as an act of terrorism, when it was an act of war, and now Iran is behaving like it's an act of war, we now have all of the soundbite clips, video footage. We have everything that we need to sell the war to the Western world. That's why the B-2 bombers moved. They say there's 6 of them in Diego Garcia. Make no mistake, there's at least 3 more on an aircraft carrier or multiple aircraft carriers. They're gonna have to spread this out. Why is all of this serious? Does anybody know how many B-2 bombers the Americans actually own? 19.
But I have another question.
Yeah.
What old world technology still remains that we haven't got the first time Trump was in office? Because I think, wasn't Trump the one that officially pulled everybody out and then Biden put people back in?
Well, what we got,
Old technology still
And
remains over
we did get a new technology, just most people wouldn't recognize it right away. But it's how we make our vaccines. The mRNA technology that's associated with the vaccine creations for COVID is a ridiculous technological leap. That and CRISPR technology, those 2 forms of technology, if they're actually just opened up and weaponized, dude, that's fucking Clone Wars shit.
That's Gattaca. If anybody's seen that Jude Law movie, that's Gattaca right there.
Yeah. So with every large war, we get a remarkable piece of technology that's returned to the civilian sector. We recognize it most often with the internet. After the Second World War, The internet is a military application, and it was released to the civilian population, right? That's what we have. I'm okay, Pop. Thank you. So this new technology that the world would be seeing would be mRNA. But what can mRNA do? Well, the last research I just noticed, they're working on the HIV vaccine with it. Like unfortunately, the vaccine is required, I believe, like every 2 months or something like that. Like it's got like an almost no shelf life inside the human body. But we had fucking nothing for AIDS my entire life. And now I got this shot that I can give you that's going to protect you for 2 weeks. Okay, we'll start.
I'm confused. Haven't we had patents for AIDS and cancer since the 90s? I'm confused now.
Oh, yeah.
The AIDS virus was developed back in the 1960s by Dr. Robert Gallo, and it was released out in the late 70s during the tail end of the peace and love movements, and that's when it sprung up in the 80s. And they sat there and blamed it on Africans either having sex with or eating monkeys.
Oh. So, yeah.
And they labeled it as a homosexual disease.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's part of the anti-homosexual movement. So
that's just Western.
There's been a patent for that thing for years.
And for cancer, dude, like it's pennies to the dollar. It used to be an aspirin back in the day. Like, there's a reason why our great-great-grandparents didn't have this. Every time they had a headache, they took this particular drug, and whatever that fucking drug was had this in it as an ingredient. Can't find that no more. Because the cure to this disease is literally pennies to the dollar. There is no profit to be made with the cure. The profit can only be made with the research. I keep saying, stop running for the cure, start running for the release. Switch the message. Use the same tactics that we've had to get the money and the funding for the cure, but let's use it as an awareness campaign and force them to give us the release of the cure that's been discovered. But that's 10,000 different other videos in the making. You guys notice how nothing's really happening with Russia yet? It's all just be very quiet.
Not really. France and the UK are looking to put boots on the ground as of today in Russia.
What is lately?
Yeah, this happened last week, and they were due to put boots on the ground in Russia today. And if any of those soldiers end up dead as a result of Russian retaliation, then they can shoot for Article 5. Now, the United States started saying, fuck you, we're not doing it, but
they agreed not to. So in essence, what happened was, in order for them to trigger Article 5 now, leave it, Tuck, is that if I send Canadian troops to go and help Ukrainian soldiers inside the country of Ukraine, and Russian troops kill these Canadian troops, we won't call for Article 5. If, though, my action of sending Canadian troops to Ukraine to help Ukrainian soldiers fight the Russians, if that action is perceived as an act of war and Russia attacks the Canadian homeland, we will trigger Article 5. So they created it like this really dicey, everybody's a bitch and no one wants to fight situation. And that's why I think it's a huge smokescreen to make the economy bust so that every country can just go back to its original playing field. And I'm going to know if that's correct by the end of this month. It was a very
and I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but here's a good point to think about. You know, we opened this video with the idea that, you know, Russia and Ukraine is the look over here thing, while Israel's in the background doing whatever the fuck it is they're doing without any outside interference. Now, it has been prophesied that in Jewish culture, and you know this for a fact, that the Muslims will infiltrate and essentially take over most of the rest of the world. That's part of their predictive ideologies as far as the Jewish people are concerned, that the Muslims and the Arabs would integrate and essentially overrun all these other nations, such as Europe, the United States, so on and so forth. And these migrations were the catalyst to bring that revelation to pass, forced revelation. And
the actually it's Islam that teaches that. So
it's Islam that teaches that, or is it the Jewish people that teach that?
So it's the same story, right? Being taught in the dark and in the light. So check this out. You ready? So the Muslims, in their end day theology, states that they're like, how he says that the companions were amazed, okay, when this was explained to them. But they asked, like, how are we going to survive the end days? Is what they asked the leader. And he says,
yeah,
food on the table. He said, what? He goes, you're going to be like food on the table. They're just going. He said, have you ever seen a piece of chicken? You pick it up, you eat it. He goes, have you ever seen the chicken fight back? No, it submits. It's food. Well, the reason why he's teaching is that, well, will there be so few of us that we won't be able to fight back? Are we submitting because we won't be able to defend ourselves? And he says, no, contrary to that we will be no millions, that we will be numbered like the froth in the sea, and we will be found everywhere. And then he was explaining this to the Muslim companions, and then they got overjoyed knowing that although that they would see hardship, that they would come out overcoming. Now that's that story preached to you in the light. If I take that exact same story and I fanaticize it and I teach it to you in the dark, we have to understand we have to kill all these fucking Muslims, because if we don't kill all these fucking Muslims, they're going to be like the froth in the sea. We'll never get control. They're going to take over the earth, and then everybody's going to be Arabic. I just sold you the exact same story in the dark, right? So that's what, and that, my dear friends, is what the world is it's up against. That's what they're seeing, and then we have an honest face of saying, well, we don't know what you're saying, or we don't know what you're picking, or we don't, because nobody knows, because it's the exact same fucking story sold to people in two different ways.
Yep. Now you throw Russia in the mix, who has probably arguably one of the strongest nuclear arsenals and some of the craziest no quit in them military forces on the planet, to go to war against the United Kingdom, where all these Middle Eastern migrants are heading to.
Check back.
So yeah, we're going to take out all the migrants in the UK, which the UK has a big Catholic influence. Where did Catholicism derive from? The Roman Empire, who was one of the original enemies of ancient Israel. So we're going to take out the Middle Easterns and the Roman Empire that converted itself into a religion known as the Catholic Church. Take them all, use Russia to take them out, while Israel takes out the smaller Middle Eastern countries.
Imagine
this is good. Tin Man.
Say again?
Check backstage, Tin Man. Check backstage. John, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse whenever I'm saying this, but I know I'm looking at the hand that's distracting for a moment. Whenever Russia and Ukraine began, this is what I heard it began over. Putin asked politely, don't put buildings there. Whoever it was built the buildings there. He said, if you don't move your buildings, I'm going to blow them up. And he said, I'm not moving my buildings. He asked politely again, can you please move your buildings, or else I will blow them up on this specific day whenever there's only skeleton crews, not real full man, everybody at the helm, only on skeleton crew days. You get my point? He literally said, on a skeleton crew day, I will blow away these buildings if you do not move them. And the first two that he put down, he didn't even fulfill them. He said, I'm giving you more time. Can you please move your buildings? And then it was like the third or fourth, maybe even the fifth time, he finally blew up the buildings, and that's what started this whole shebang. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse every time I explain this. Putin gave the man ample time. He asked profusely and nicely, can you please move the buildings from my border? I do
But he
not
wasn't
feel
allowed
comfortable
to.
with them there. Exactly. Go ahead.
It's because he wasn't allowed to. Like, if we really needed to see it, we saw how Zelensky was treated inside the Oval Office. Like, if we needed to see it, we saw it, right? He was literally
Yeah.
talked to like a child and was literally told to apologize and say thank you. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. Like, we're talking about nations, Canada, United States, the West, NATO, all that stuff, millions and billions of fucking dollars in weaponry and gear. And I get it. Don't get me wrong, but we don't need to belittle a fucking human being in such a way in the most powerful room in the world, or at least what we're told is the most powerful room in the world. So I get that. Oh fuck, I got a cramp in my leg. Sorry. So what I'm getting at here now is, fuck, my brain farted. Okay. So why? Okay, here's an interesting thing. Okay, open up a world map and take a look at eastern Ukraine, western Russian border. Okay, and then you're just going to observe the size of that. Okay, it's a certain size. Now, if Russia took Ukraine as a whole, and you looked at the western border of Ukraine, do you see how much smaller that is?
Yeah.
It's a much smaller border to police and protect against NATO. Do you see how? Because you look at Ukraine, and then you got to look above Ukraine. Well, everything above Ukraine is a NATO country, right? So the entire western side of Russia, north-south, is almost a NATO line, unless for as long as Ukraine is not a member of NATO. If Ukraine at any point becomes a member of NATO, the eastern border of Russia, Ukraine, that becomes the defining NATO line, which is substantially larger than the eastern Ukrainian borderline. Russia does not want to have to police that big badass border anymore.
No, and in truth, they really shouldn't have to. I mean, if you think about it, the Berlin Wall fell in what, 89? At that point, Russia and the United States were on good terms. Communist Russia, the Soviet Union was dissolved. Communism died the day the Berlin Wall fell. At which point, NATO, which was designed to protect the Europe and its allies from the European Union, did not need to exist anymore because because communist Russia no longer existed. And up until Russia took in Edward Snowden and gave him asylum, we on the West were on great terms with Russia. But it was when Putin gave Edward Snowden asylum that things nosedived in terms of our diplomatic relations. And nobody fucking talks about that.
Right?
And you notice when that started, things with Israel kicked off as well. Things really started ramping up there in the years to follow.
So now we're going to get into big picture. This is why everything's happening. And this is why everything has to happen in the way that it's happening. So the United States holds a security contract for Israel. So every time somebody does something stupid to Israel, it's always the United States that comes to the rescue. Every time somebody does something stupid to Syria or Syria, Iran comes to the rescue. You do something stupid to, and this is what happened. Iran and Russia together worked together to help stabilize Syria to the very best that they could, right? They're doing the same thing now with the Gaza Strip and Israel. They didn't want to touch the Gaza Strip and Israel because that puts Iran and Russia in direct conflict with the United States' interest. But Joe Biden himself said, a young Joe Biden, you guys can find this on YouTube, a young Joe Biden said that Israel was a requirement and that if such a thing as Israel did not exist, that the United States of America would have to go to the Middle East and create one in order to protect its assets there. And literally, it's the oil. It's cheaper for you guys monetarily. It's cheaper for you guys to protect Israel and allow the Jewish people to live in Israel and do the day-to-day workings of a nation than for you to protect that nation and pay American soldiers to be in that nation round the clock to keep it as a military asset. It's a military asset put out as a civilian platform, and they let the Jewish people live there, and they protect it. But what has happened is that Palestine has happened, and it's grown too large to ignore. And the Gaza Strip,
Yeah.
and the fucking 2 million person open air prison. That's what it was in 2012, and now we're at like 1.8 million or 1.2 million people left inside of that 2 million open air prison. Where the fuck all these people go? Oh, that's right, they keep bombing them. Now, no aid has been able to get through. And I'm telling you, it's not because Hamas is stopping the aid. Hamas wants the aid. It's because Israel's blocking the aid from going through. Go ahead, Grandmaster.
It's time that Netanyahu needs to fucking go.
Well, he's already gone.
Netanyahu is gone, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Oh.
Which is what's worrisome, because we have a new guy calling the shots, and we don't have as
Well, the thing is,
information about him. Go ahead.
The first time he was ousted, it was nice. People were happy.
Mm-hmm.
There was no bombing of Gaza, no bombing of Palestine. Everybody was happy. He was gone.
Yeah, because he's a Zionist, and even the Israelis don't always approve of that.
Yeah, in fact, isn't there like a huge majority of Jewish, what would be the terminology? Jewish sects that are strongly opposed to Zionism, because Zionism is essentially Judaism as a state or a political thing.
Zionism is bringing.
I forget what it is. Yeah, there's Judaism, and then there's Zionism, and a huge chunk of Judaism
Oh, the Orthodox.
is strongly opposed to Zionism.
The one with the thing and the hat. The real Jews.
Orthodox.
Yeah, the Orthodox
Yeah.
Jews.
So I'd also like to bring up something else. Maybe people have heard of the line, the Q, this Dragon Ball land. Where are they all supposed to go? This really sounds like history repeating itself whenever they were trying to modernize Japan. It's like they're attempting to modernize the desert area right there between Asia, Europe, and Africa. And I'm like, okay, so the people are fighting back. Or are they? Or are they trying to set all of this up? And certain people who know how I am, I like to look for the bugs inside of the mattress. I don't look at the bed sheets. I rip off the bed sheets. I look at the mattress, and I start box cutting the mattress. What is really going on here? What is really happening? Because I know people have heard of these mega structures that came up as an idea. They've set up the land. They started to build it, but they stopped because they ran out of money. But did they?
They didn't. You're talking about Kazakhstan and Dubai and places like that.
And isn't that around the same area that all these massive explosions are going on? Sooner or later, these people are going to move around and start bombing other things that they want to bomb. Was it really that they ran out of money? Was it really the people saying, no, they don't want their land modernized? Was there another thing being influenced here? Why are we always force-fed the alphabet soup without thinking? That's why I brought up the whole point of ancient technology. What else is there? And what else can be done? And then I started thinking, maybe they're
Are you talking about the Stargate in Iraq?
I didn't say anything. You said that.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing that came to mind was Saddam Hussein's Stargate.
But you get the whole point of the fact that I'm putting on the table. There has to be something legitimate. The people aren't going to be fighting over spilt oil. And I literally mean that. The people are not fighting over spilt oil.
It's the moon.
I don't care how much you want that to be believed.
It's the moon. But the thing is that we can't prove anything. But what they're seeing and what could help us prove it is the shit that they're finding in Iraq. We could say something like a Stargate, but even just information would be paramount. Like, what if I told you the moon's not a rock? What if I told you
Cheese, isn't it?
It's a reflective sphere. and that we're going to attempt to put a space kind of thing on it so that it's less fuel to take off from there. And then we're going to start putting satellites around Mars so we can actually establish a Mars colony. And this is supposed to happen before 27, whenever they come down and say, no, you are bad kids. Bye. Pluck.
So here's the scary part. When we first started doing this, the official narrative was aliens did not exist. And remember when I used to say that can't be right because nobody on God's green earth writes a law about something that doesn't exist? No one goes through that effort. And there is a federal law in the United States that if you get caught hiding an alien, there's a big fine up to and even including jail time. Like that's a real thing. That's in the books. Well, why would the Americans write a law about something that didn't exist? And now in your guys' Congress, we're all about how like UFOs are real and that this is it's not fake anymore. And we're opening up some new files and here's the Blue Book documents. And well, this is why. Something's happening with the moon. We've learned something about the moon. And what we've learned about it is very scary and nobody knows anything about it. So everybody shuts the fuck up about it.
We learned on Apollo 20, but go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah. Why have we in the past nuked the moon? And I'll tell you why.
We nuked the moon?
Water. Yes. A school bus sized hole is in the south pole of the moon. The cover story was that we were looking for water. Go ahead,
right.
John.
But something else happened out there. They recorded something very impressive. When something hit the moon, when they were there, the device
got pissed off.
Something hit the moon, and that bitch rang for the space of an hour or 4 hours. The moon
like
rang for 4 hours.
Yeah,
as
3 or
though
4
it
hours.
was
It
hollow.
was wrong. As though it was hollow. Exactly, John. Yeah, that's the weird stuff, man. That's why I said it's like a reflective spear. And it's very weird because we even found the point where our crater, so to speak, went down as deep as the other craters. And then we had to blow the hole open to find out if the moon was or wasn't.
So when they nuked that, they purposely hit the center of a crater because if you pay attention to the moon as a whole, every crater stops at a very specific depth, as though it can only go to this depth. And once it gets to that depth, that's all she wrote because they're hitting some. Everybody talks about, okay, I always tell people about junk theories and to be very careful with junk theories. Do you know when people start talking about flat earth and the firmament? I'm not a flat earther, but I'm starting to believe that the firmament is this type of shit that they're talking about for the moon. And we're saying that the earth is flat. And as it stands, the government's like, let it ride. What? They just think the earth is flat right now. We've had this before. Let that story ride. Because if they find out the truth about the moon, we have some explaining to do. So I think there's
like
truth.
I said, if they find out about Apollo 19 and 20, they really have some explaining to do.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's all getting nuts fast. Now, why did I say I would have a better understanding of everything by the end of this month? If World War III is actually going to pop, like I believe it is, and this is the downside about being me. 10 years ago, I used to talk about this shit, and I was supposed to be fucking wrong, and I wasn't, and I don't like that about me. So why does this have to happen now? Because in order for this to be a global conflict, the world leaders as a whole, and you heard it here first, the world leaders as a whole will have to utilize each other's military conflict as a smokescreen for themselves. And this is going to be playing into a big part of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Look over there while I do this over here. Okay. Why? Check this out. We, the United States, and a bunch of other countries, we're called NATO. And we move lockstep. Even when we say we don't like each other, we just make sure everybody's got everything they need and we move on with our lives. The opponent is no different. But what is the opponent? Okay. The opponent is Iran, Russia, and China. We're not here to propagate hate towards these nations. I fucking love everybody. But our governments have stated that these governments are the bad guys. That means that these governments have to move in lockstep just like we do. Trust me, Donald Trump is bringing a larger peace to the world than the people will fully understand. Why? Because if Russia can agree with us on something, Russia's going to help us explain it to China and explain it to Iran. How do we believe that Russia is going to be able to do that? For one very specific purpose. What? We got them together now, don't we? They're agreeing right now, aren't they? They are friends. There's not a lot of fighting between those two super huge powerhouse nations. Their economies are working together, similar to how our economies work together, which means that their military strike will have to be in unison. In order for them to win, they got to do one big dirty. And that one big dirty, she's got to fucking work. It can't be halfway. So that means Iran's going to have to militarily attack Israel. At the exact same moment that Iran is militarily attacking Israel, Russia's going to have to militarily attack Ukraine. This is going to create a smokescreen that's going to have Canada, the United States, and the rest of the world going, fuck, who do we hit first? And as soon as that happens,
and then suddenly Thailand's under
Taiwan.
like this.
But then China's going to hit Taiwan, which is going to take a large aspect of the chip manufacturing companies. As soon as that happens, and all of this is so that China can take Taiwan. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. It has nothing to fucking do with Israel. Because Russia and Iran and China, they need the chips for the missiles. For their next generation weapons to work against us, they need the chips that Taiwan makes that we are so heavily guarding and protecting. Now, why this month? Why does that fucking matter?
Wait, I thought the resources for the chips, I forgot what the name of the resource is, but it's in India.
Yes, there is some there, yes. But a very large portion of what we use as North America, Taiwan's the only democratic nation in that side of the world, for lack of a better explanation. Like Taiwan,
and that's what I meant. As soon as the Israeli thing goes on, as soon as the Ukraine-Russia thing goes on, Taiwan, excuse me, I said land, but Taiwan's going to be underwater like Venice is. It's going to happen that quick.
Yes.
Because I bet you, China, how are they popping up these islands? They're sucking out the dirt from under Taiwan and nobody knows. And sooner or later, that island's going to go right into the ocean.
It's that
they're
or
basically trying to Atlantis it, just collapse it from underground.
You got it, Tin Man. You got it.
I want to side with that. I really do, but I find it would be easy to prove. This would be easy to prove. We would just have to look at the seismographs. No matter what we're doing, if we're moving Earth at that level, at that depth, we're shaking some shit.
And that's why I said China covers more from the rest of the world than America hides from its citizens. There's a lot of shit going on in China that we don't know about. There's pyramids in China that they've intentionally buried under forests just so that they will not appear.
So, but they won't destroy Taiwan, mainly because factories for no other reason than just money. The factories that make the chips, they're gonna want to keep that until they at least get in and get what they want, which would be the IP, the intellectual property, the know-how to build these chips, and then they can go and do what China does best. And this is not a racist thing. They industrialize, man. They're like, they just fucking, they make shit. They just don't go to war with them, dude. They make fucking 10,000 warheads for hour 100. Like they know how to mass produce stuff. Whether it works all the time or not is irrelevant.
And aren't they close to like a 2 million man army right now?
3. It's a 1 million man army in all sectors. So air, land, and sea, it's 1 million people each. They just don't have the necessary equipment to cross the oceans to come and bother us. See, we have we have the gear to go to them and fuck their shit up, but we much rather not. But they would much rather come and fuck our shit up, but they don't have the gear. So they don't have the aircraft carriers, and their planes can't fly that far. That's why the Japanese thing was
their manpower is lacking the power.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just I got all the people in the world, but they're useless if you can't put them on target.
Yep.
And that's where Russia can help them. Russia can help move. Like Russia knows how to do logistics, not well, but they know how to do logistics.
Yeah.
So you got all of, and now why this month? because there's only two times, if I'm not mistaken, that are extremely strategic to be able to do a full-on invasion of Taiwan, which would mean land, air, and sea. Land and air is relatively easy, just parachutes and planes, right? But the sea side, the sea is a little bit more complex. It's a very short distance between those two bitches, but the waters are rough and the tides are low, and then every now and again the tides are high, and they need those high tides to get those ships in to do a sea invasion at the critical military points. They will only be able to do that at some point this month, and then another month this year. That window will open only twice, and every year it opens twice every year. We're inside of one of those windows. And I wasn't worried about fucking nothing until Donald Trump moved the bombers. The last time this happened, it was Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
The last time we moved everything around in such a drastic way,
Pearl Harbor happened.
it was Pearl Harbor. And we've said this in the past where, oh, we need another Pearl Harbor, and then we saw 9/11. Oh, we need another 9/11. Careful what you wish for, because it's coming. And
Yep.
this one might be a mushroom cloud. This
So?
one, like, I hate to be the guy that's like all alarmist and da 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 da. I've said a lot of shit in the past. I'm coming right to you, Grandmaster. I said a lot of shit in the past, but I'm running out of things that have to be completed for it to be game on. Go ahead, Grandmaster.
We also need to prepare for a thing called a cyber pandemic.
Are you talking about the systematic cyber attack on the United States, or the EMP on United States soil in conjunction with the racial civil war to get Trump out of office in the summer?
No. There's a cyber pandemic that'll happen. Now, just in case if YouTube has just in case if you could hold on. Just in case if YouTube has up your ass,
Yeah.
it's cyber, not a medical bullshit. It's a cyber attack. It's called a cyber pandemic.
Are they going to hit the medical system?
No, he's talking about
I
the
think I know
internet.
what Grandmaster's
An internet
talking about.
pandemic.
It's going to be a cyber attack.
They're going to release something, and everybody's either A, going to get infected, or B, nobody's going to be able to access anything.
That already
DARPA's
exists.
DARPA's going to take the internet back for like 72 hours. Because
Yeah.
I've heard about this. They're going to push my hand, because my calling card was whenever they shut everything down and there's no communication, here they come. But they're going to do a test of this. So I was like, oh no, they're going to hit my button. So I have to tell my people, stand down, because this is their test.
Just hold on. I got
So again, just in case if YouTube has a wild hair up its ass, this has nothing to do with COVID bullshit. It has to do with a cyber pandemic shit. And it's something that we have to prepare for, because look, what's out there? I mean,
Yeah.
cyber attacks, EMPs, what the fuck, dude?
Because I've heard about
we
them
lost
wanting
Connor.
to shut down the internet. Yeah, he said something and then he dropped off. I heard them say something about wanting to shut down the internet for a few days. And whenever I read into it, they was wanting to reboot the internet or something to like they did on South Park. It's like literally the thing on South Park. They have to reboot the internet, but they haven't done it yet, is what I'm trying to say. Anybody seen that episode where Kyle just walks up, unplugs it, and plugs it back in? They haven't done that yet for some reason. And if I had to think really hard and throw my neurons together, I think they want to integrate AI, well, what they call AI, with the internet so that the algorithms, and that's the only way to perform that update is for
They take the system
DARPA to
offline
take the
completely.
internet for a moment. For DARPA to take the internet for a moment, it may be 3 days, it may be a week, but it'll be gone. We'll be like 70s for like up to a week, 2 to 4 days, like the little blackout. That go ahead. I'm talking too much.
You're
That
fine.
we don't know. That we don't
We
know. I mean,
lost Connor, so we don't know where he is.
I came across a feed from the Blaze, and they're talking about a cyber pandemic, and I'm sitting there like, okay, I'm listening, and whatever's going to come from, we do not know. And that
I'm going to come straight from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, it may be a cyber pandemic as a distraction for something bigger.
And that's what I'm stating.
Because
Grimlock,
you need something to distract people.
Yep, that's what I'm stating. They're going to take down communications for a common civilization. And then to go back to one of our premiere shows, they're going to do exactly what Stephen Greer said. They're going to push the button that they had since the 60s or 70s. They're going to falsify extraplanetary invasion. They're going to unite the planet under their fucking scale. And then within the next 2 years, the real ones are going to come and say, what the f*** is this?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I'm going to say it again. Just in case if YouTube has a wild hair up its ass and thinking we're talking about COVID. No. That's ancient history. That's last year. That's old news. Old news, guys. And the one thing that does bug me the most is got these fucking goddamn sheeples with their head up their fucking ass, not realizing, hey, the Cold War the wall may have came down in Berlin. Cold War ain't over. It never ended in the fucking first place.
Nope.
That shit was a distraction for us. Like, there's peace now. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. At which point, why not have just disbanded NATO? That's what I've been saying all along.
Okay, Tin Man, we have a comment. Their first one has been fact checked.
Cashless society this year, Trump just passed it.
Yeah, no, Executive Order 14067 won't replace the U.S. dollar. So the Executive Order 14067 doesn't do what people say and think it's going to do. It's a misunderstanding.
Okay, and to Chris Chalice, if you have any other documents or any other reference to this point to substantiate this claim, by all means, link it in the comments below. We most definitely want to see that. We do not want to promote any disinformation, but we don't want to misinformation either. So if there is something that we are not aware of, that you, sir, are aware of, please post it in the comment section so that all can see it and review it. And so the facts can get out there. We definitely don't want to miss anything. We don't want to misrepresent anything, but we don't want to miss anything either. So again, if you've got something that we are not aware of or that we missed, please share it with us. Thank you.
He
Zero, go
also
ahead.
stated DWES on drones, and people will think it's an alien invasion. I'm stating I don't
Project
know
Bluebeam.
what it will be, but I'm stating that they can stage the extraplanetary invasion. They can stage one. They have the ability to do so, and the technology has just advanced since they've had the ability.
Yeah, it all goes back to Project Bluebeam, as it's commonly referred to. I know it has a more
Correct.
technical term to it, but what everybody knows it as is Project Bluebeam.
Yeah,
We
we've been
talked about that a couple
both
weeks
sides.
ago.
We've been discussing both sides of that, both the presenting each religion's messiahs to the world, as well as the extraplanetary invasion, is what Project Bluebeam is considered. Those are both sides of that coin.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, you also have the go ahead, Revan.
We also got to remember too, Agenda 2025 it's still in play.
Yes, and that's where it comes into, where a lot of people would make the fair argument, like Alex Jones and others are making the fair argument that Trump is anti-globalist and he's railing against all these things. But here's the kicker, is he willfully or even unwittingly playing to the globalist tune?
I get you, bro, and that's exactly what my brain keeps on saying to me, man. If they didn't want this to happen, they'd have already have stopped it in some sort of way, shape, or form. This has to be part of the plan. Why does even the Trump supporters, why don't you see it? And I'm not saying the left is correct right now. I'm just stating, why don't you see the bigger picture and that this has to be part of the real plan?
Yeah, I mean, this could be construed as order out of chaos, and the quote Democratic Party is just the sacrificial lamb.
So are you ready for this?
Achieve that agenda. I do not exclude the possibility of that, or that it could shift to that, but I would like to think that Trump is on our side, and this is an opportunity for us to turn it around, even if he's not the one to turn it around. Definitely be the catalyst to finish what he essentially started. Because Alex Jones is right in what he said, that people are aware of the game that's being played, and it can't be played out anymore because it's already been exposed and in many ways demolished. They can't rebuild from that, at least not for another several generations. However, the globalists can shift point, and I will give it to you in a second, Zero. But I need to get the thought out of my head. If you look at this in terms of what the globalists have been working on for centuries, and if you integrate the idea that Lucifer, the devil, is behind this, who has had since the beginning of time to orchestrate this plan with an intricate understanding of how the human mind works and how to manipulate the human mind and shift us in any which direction. Even if Trump is the people's ally, if Lucifer is real and is in fact behind this, is the man behind the curtain, so to speak, Trump, even as our advocate, could still be playing into the globalist agenda hand. And that is something that has to be taken into account, especially from those who are Christian. That has to be taken into account, because the globalists are saying they want to force the Messiah to return, whether that be the Jewish Messiah or Yeshua the Christ, Jesus Christ. And many people are saying, and I forget where I heard it, but many people are saying they are trying to force the return of Jesus Christ so that they can finally kill him. Just like they tried to build the Tower of Babel in order to reach God to try to kill him. Okay? History repeats itself. And, even if Trump is on our side and is railing against the globalists, this is something that cannot be overlooked. These people, whether it be the devil or whether it be the human globalists who have been working at this for centuries, they have an intricate understanding of the human mind and how things work. And even if we are railing against it, they would have contingencies upon contingencies upon contingencies. We need to be wise to the game and nip it in the butt. And one thing that I am really big on is, regardless of what Trump does in office, the contingency could be as simple as the next president, Uno reverse card, as has been the case in the past. You don't like the previous administration's policies? Uno reverse card, new policy superseding the previous president's policies and executive orders. Trump's doing it right now with a lot of Biden's orders under the guise of the auto pen. Okay? Undoing everything that the Biden administration has done. Who's to say that the next president can't come in and undo what Trump has done? Something needs to be done to eliminate the Uno reverse card as a contingency plan, and all other contingency plans to count and countermeasures to Trump's efforts need to be taken into consideration if Donald Trump is in fact on our side. Zero, go ahead. Thank you.
Exactly.
And therefore, stating all of this, and here's your little bit of icing. What is the easiest way to get anyone to do something? You make them think that it was their idea in the first place.
Yep, exactly. So he could be inadvertently playing right into their hands, or they could have contingencies upon contingencies, or just simply an Uno reverse card during the next administration.
Or is this the contingency? Because they realized that their original fans were working but failed whenever they pushed too far. Now let's make it seem like we've given up and let them not realize what is behind the curtain, like you was pointing at. The guys behind the curtain is where everything really goes down. And then it's like I've always stated, there's layers to this. There's that one at that part. There's the guys who actually are the black ones in coats that nobody talks about because they're actually above BlackRock and Bilderberg. And then we have BlackRock and Bilderberg. And then we have the richest people across the planet. And then we have the world leaders. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's been a lot of headway made in combating the globalist New World Order agenda. There has been. Most people are probably awake to the fact that something is amiss. And a lot of people are, in fact, awake to the New World Order agenda, whether they be Christian or otherwise. That's neither here nor there. But the fact of the matter remains, we have to remain vigilant in making sure that the powers that be do what the people elected them to do. And we need to make sure that any progress we make in our strides can't be undone or circumvented. So I know they're talking about trying to drive President Trump out of office in the summertime during a civil war type scenario, which I think is actually going to be really stupid because all they can really do is get violent and riot and kill their neighbors. As far as like legitimate war, you have these states that are literally divided. And many of these blue states, if they were to secede from the Union, couldn't survive because it's the same reason that the South fell and the North won in the original Civil War. Supply lines. Okay? The South had all the agriculture, but the North had all the industrial. So one couldn't survive without the other.
Lee called Baby Grant to surrender, and he did so because they did not want another Gettysburg.
Exactly. But you have the Western states and a few scattered states in the middle of the U.S. and a few states on the eastern United States that are blue states. Your supply lines from east to west and vice versa are going to be cut off. You're going to have a few of these states who are essentially just surrounded by red states. To secede from the United States as a whole and collective
And I'm agreeing with you, man. I'm agreeing
would be
with
insane. It
because
wouldn't
the
work.
whole reason why it actually started was because the North had the factories and the South had agriculture, and most of them hadn't industrialized quite yet, so they had to have physical manual labor in the fields doing the agriculture.
Yeah, and at which point it was just a luck of the draw back in the old days when it was just simply North versus South. But the North had the competitive edge because they had some agriculture, not a whole lot, but they had some. But they had the industrial, which was used to make their firearms and their other resources. You don't have that problem anymore. But you do have a problem where you have a few states on the west side, a few states on the east side, and a few states in the middle. And all those states are essentially surrounded by red states. You're not going to have a good supply line in between all these states if they secede from the United States. Not to mention the fact that all these military bases and whatnot for an alliance to the United States first. So
there's too many.
And many of these armed forces, many of these members of the armed forces are, and this goes for the police as well, many of these police and military personnel hold to United States conservative ideals. That's why they serve in the military. The left serving in the military doesn't hold to those ideals as much anymore. So their numbers in the military are significantly lower.
So, Tin Man,
so you're not going to get. They're not going to have the military. They're not really going to have the police, and especially considering the left are anti-police. They pretty much alienated the police, even if the police might have been pro-democratic at any point. How can they expect to win any semblance of a civil war outside of just random acts of violence? So there can be no organization. There can be no structure. No military might. No supply chains. How the hell would this even work? I mean, I would love to see the battle plans on this. Alex Jones, if you have the battle plans on this, please post them publicly. I would love to see how the left would actually plan to pull this off because I just can't see it.
Tin Man, we have comments from YouTube, and I think Grimlock wanted to say something as well.
Yes, more from our friend Chris. Says, LOL, we are the new world order. It's proceeding. Trump and Elon are in on it. Does anybody have any discernment anymore? Both sides are dirty billionaires, Satanists. Who doesn't give a shit about the broke Satanists, Luciferian, who are stupid to go along? People be in love with their own voice instead of listening and researching. Ego and pride will be our doom. I am not part of the hive mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Tin Man.
Yes.
I would say this like from the heart, man, with a logical mind here. The old saying is, before you open your mouth, you got to open your mind, man.
Yep. Don't open your mouth unless you know what you're talking about.
we're dealing with a bunch of non-thinkers who are basically so blind they had their head so far up their ass they could actually smell what they had last month.
Yeah.
To a certain point of view.
Yeah.
But I think the only way the Democrats look, if it is a civil war, it's probably not the type where weapons are needed.
Yeah.
Or,
I think,
for example, World War III. It's going to be the type of war where no weapons are going to be needed. It'll be a continuation from the Cold War from back in the day.
yeah,
If you remember the magazine Spy versus Spy, it's going to be that shit.
Epic. I love that shit.
yes, exactly, and that's kind of what I was getting at, Grandmaster. Thank you. I think a lot of this correlates back to what Connor was talking about. Is this overall conflict? Everybody looking at everybody else, all these smoke screens, in order to distract from the bigger picture. A bunch of smaller smoke screens, and I think the Civil War conditions that are set to take place in the summer might correlate with everything that's going on in the Middle East and the Russia-NATO conflict. I think all that shit might happen, if not at the first high tide, definitely at the second high tide. Russia and NATO start exchanging fire. Israel and the Middle Eastern countries start having their nuclear war. And the United States, who is trying to bring everybody to peace, is essentially just going to be too busy ripping itself apart, Republican versus Democrat, in its own little makeshift civil war. We're going to be too busy to do anything about it, while the Eastern continents completely blow each other to shit. And by the time it's all said and done, everything's going to be a radioactive ashtray. Would I say that might be a fair assumption?
I would like to throw a little, yeah. I want to throw out there that they pulled a Libya on Syria, and I want to tell you how. ISIS was working with the Biden administration. Okay. They gassed Syrians and made it to look like that Bashar al-Assad did it.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the guy they have now in there, he ain't Syrian. He's Israeli.
So you've got an Israeli as the political leader of Syria?
Yes.
This is definitely something worth looking into, and I think we definitely segue into deeper waters.
Change.
Say again?
They call it a regime change under false pretenses.
You know, you and I are definitely going to have to talk about this more, and we're going to have to catch this. We're going to have to expound more on this next week, and then I think next week we'll wrap it up with
Libya. Libya, Gaddafi wasn't doing anything to anybody. He was in his prime where he was done doing all that crap that he used to do back in the day. 2011, he was about to introduce a golden dinar.
Yeah, and that's why he was killed.
So all of Africa, whole continent. So Africa, the continent itself, everybody will be on the same global playing field. Economically, playing field. And so they did the same thing with Saddam. They used the war in Iraq as a ruse to go after him. Why? Because Saddam Hussein was selling oil in euros. Yes.
Yeah, and
Now,
isn't that?
Gaddafi,
I've heard the same thing, that
France,
a lot of the problem
France,
is Putin's looking to drop the dollar as well. Would I be
he already
correct?
did.
Okay, so he's already dropped the dollar.
He already did.
Okay,
Yeah, a
this
long
is
time ago.
interesting. So he doesn't do any business with the petrodollar. That's interesting.
Now, here's the BRICS Bank, BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those are the 5 main countries that are opening the banks here. You have Mexico,
Yes.
that's joining the BRICS. You have who else? Countries in South America joining the BRICS and shit. Yeah, Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS.
Really?
Yeah, the UAE joining the BRICS. Yeah. The BRICS banks is rivaling the Federal Reserve and the central banks.
So basically,
Yeah.
this is interesting. That I definitely want Connor on this because he knows a lot about this kind of stuff. I want to save that till next week for sure. But just a little bit in this. So what you're saying is that the BRICS is set to replace the current banking forms that we have?
No, when it was formed, it was to rival. Because any country that dropped the dollar will join the BRICS Bank.
That
Okay.
sounds a lot. Not to
So the
interrupt
BRICS
anybody,
is the
but that sounds
competitor.
a lot of South America countries, Southern Hemisphere countries that are aligning together in order to compete against Northern Hemisphere economies.
No way, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's rivaling. It's rivaling the current world monetary system, not its replacement, not its planned global replacement.
Wants to, but Trump wants to break it up. Why?
Well, I can see that as
we all know why.
As a threat to the United States petrodollar. But that is definitely something. Definitely start bringing up some research. Start sharing that in our forum.
Not just that, but Trump wants to take back the Panama Canal. Why?
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter gave it back. We didn't own it. We stole it. We stole it in 1903. We stole the canal.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with trade routes.
The people of Panama.
Yeah, I think the thing is, we had an agreement, hey, we gave it to Panama, history is what history is, but I think it was
give it back.
We had an agreement to use the Panama Canal, to have permission to use the Panama Canal, and we kind of got fucked on that deal. And I think a lot of that has to do with, trade sanctions, trade wars, tariffs, and all that. I think a lot of that plays into, what Trump's doing with tariffs. It's mostly, economic and trade stuff. I don't know the finer details on that.
Here's another one. Here's another one evolving around the canal. Okay, 1989.
Okay.
George Bush Sr. became president. Okay.
Yes.
Who was the number one most wanted guy at the time? Manuel Noriega. He was the most wanted guy at the time because he refused to play fucking ball with us. So what happens? They send in the Marines, the Navy SEALs, all that shit to go after him.
Yep.
And how many people died? 7,500 people on the poor side of Panama were murdered by our own military.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little kid.
Men, women,
I don't know anything about that.
Now, you had journalists from foreign and local coming in to investigate. Each one gunned down by our own military. Why? Because George H.W. Bush wanted it quiet. But except for one reporter, one journalist got through, interviewed people that they had, told the story to her. She left. 8 people were gunned down by our military, including a doctor. Wow. 7,500 people were murdered by our military at the time.
And that was his people or our people?
By our military.
Okay, but those people killed, were they our people or were they his people?
I think by the way he's explaining it is American bullets tear through enemy soldiers.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
Now,
thank you.
After they caught Noriega, they put in their puppet. Boy, do we live our puppets. And after that, he was part of the rich side of Panama. They love them, but the people on the poor side of Panama, come on now. You're killing innocent people. Why? Because of one fucking guy who refused to kiss your ass? Huh?
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing now. You know, Putin isn't taking the petrodollar. Saddam Hussein didn't take the petrodollar. Gaddafi dropped the petrodollar. You go against the United States, Papa spank.
No, Papa
for the longest time. Yeah, for the longest time, the United States has been the world's strong arm. We've been the hand with the belt on the rest of the world's ass. And now, you know, we've really definitely shifted away from that and into we have. We still try to be the strong arm, but at the end of the day, you look at where we are economically, we, like the rest of the world, are pretty much on the verge of collapse, societal collapse overall. Yeah, we're currently in a state of bounce back, but
that's only until
there's no denying the fact that we were there. So, I mean, there's a lot of areas to cover, and I think next week, it's high time we start expanding outward and looking at some of these other countries, like you were talking about South America and all these other issues. You know, we focused a lot on Russia. We focused a lot on Israel this week. But this is all encompassing. This covers the entire world. This affects the entire world to one degree or another. And I think it's high time we start looking at how these things are impacting the rest of the world. But in the meantime, I got to take a shit. So I'm going to go ahead and call this. Connor's already bounced out.
No shit.
So until next time, this is the Tin Man with the Resistance. If you're watching this, you are the Resistance.
Rips.